After that night in the hospital, Ethan made it his mission to bring Mira's smile back. He visited her every day, bringing flowers, books, and small gifts that reminded her of their happy days together. At first, she was quiet, polite, but distant. She still cared for him, yet her heart carried the pain of broken promises. Slowly, Ethan began to show her that this time was different. He helped her walk when she was too weak, listened when she wanted to cry, and made her laugh when the world felt heavy. "You don't have to do this," she said once, her eyes soft but sad. Ethan smiled gently. "I do, because I broke your heart, and I'll spend as long as it takes to fix it." Weeks passed, and Mira began to heal, not just in her body, but in her heart. She started smiling again, not because of what he said, but because of what he did. Actions spoke louder than words, and Ethan's actions told her that he was truly sorry. When she was finally discharged, Ethan offered to drive her home. The ride was quiet but peaceful. It reminded them both of the day everything had begun, the mistaken ride that changed their lives. As the car rolled through the city streets, Ethan said softly, "Funny how one wrong turn led us to everything." Mira smiled faintly. Maybe it wasn't wrong after all. But before they could enjoy their peace for long, a new storm came. The next morning, a business news report spread online with pictures of Ethan leaving the hospital with Mira. The headline read, "CEO caught again with the poor girl. Company's future at risk." The story exploded everywhere. Investors threatened to withdraw completely this time. Ethan's board called for an emergency meeting, demanding that he either step down or end his relationship permanently. When Ethan received the message, his heart sank. He knew what this meant. If he chose Mira, he would lose everything he had built, but if he let her go again, he would lose himself. That evening, he drove to Mira's place, his face pale, his heart torn. She greeted him with a warm smile, but when she saw his expression, she knew something was wrong. "Ethan, what happened?" He took her hands in his and said softly, "The board gave me an ultimatum. It's either the company or you." Mira froze, feeling her world shake again. "So they still want to separate us," she whispered. Ethan nodded slowly. "I told them I need time to decide." She looked at him in disbelief. "Time?" "Ethan, if you still have to think about it, then you already made your choice." Tears filled her eyes. "You can't love someone and hesitate when the world asks you to pick." He tried to explain. "Mira, it's not about choosing them over you. It's about everything I've worked for. Thousands of people depend on the company. I can't just walk away overnight." She stepped back, her voice breaking. "You always say that. You always find a reason to protect everything but us." Ethan's heart shattered at her words. He wanted to reach out, but she turned away. "You said love was worth the risk," she whispered, trembling. "But when it's your turn to risk something, you step back." Ethan's voice cracked. "That's not fair." She turned and looked at him with teary eyes. "Then prove it. Prove that you love me more than your title." Ethan stared at her, his chest heavy, and said quietly, "If I walk away, I lose everything." Mira shook her head slowly. "No, Ethan, you'll lose nothing, because love isn't something you lose. It's something you live for." Then she took a deep breath and added softly, "But maybe I was never meant to be part of your world." With that, she walked inside, closing the door before he could say another word. That night, Ethan didn't sleep. He sat in his car, staring at the city skyline, the same city where he had everything, yet felt empty. He thought of Mira's smile, her laughter, the way she believed in him even when he doubted himself. The board meeting was scheduled for the next morning. When he entered the room, the members were waiting, their expressions cold. Clara spoke sharply. "So, Ethan, what's your decision?" He stood silently for a moment, then said calmly, "My decision is final. I choose her." The room went silent. Clara's eyes widened. "You're throwing everything away for her?" Ethan smiled sadly. "I'm not throwing it away. I'm finally living for something real." And with that, he took off his CEO badge, placed it on the table, and walked out. Outside the building, the sun was rising. For the first time in years, he felt free. He drove straight to Mira's bookstore. She was arranging books when she saw him walk in. "Ethan?" she said softly, shocked. He smiled and said, "I made my choice." Tears filled her eyes. "You didn't have to." "Yes, I did," he interrupted gently. "Because love without courage isn't love at all." Mira covered her mouth as tears rolled down her cheeks. "Ethan!" He stepped closer, cupped her face in his hands and whispered, "From a simple ride to forever love, this was always our story." She smiled through her tears and whispered, "Then let's never stop writing it." They hugged tightly, the world outside forgotten. In that moment, it didn't matter that he was no longer a CEO or that she was still the same girl who once mistook his car for an Uber. What mattered was that love had finally won. Not the kind found in fairy tales, but the kind that fights, breaks, and still chooses to stay. As they stood there, the rain began to fall softly outside, just like the day they met. And as Ethan whispered, "This time, I'll never let go," Mira smiled, knowing in her heart that this was not just the end of their story, but the beginning of forever. For a while, everything felt like a dream for Mira and Ethan. They started seeing each other quietly, away from the noise of the world. He would visit her small apartment after work, bringing food or books, and she would listen to him talk about his day while brewing tea. They laughed, shared stories, and slowly built something that felt pure and real. Mira often said softly, "I still can't believe this is happening." And Ethan would smile, replying, "Believe it, because you're the best thing that's ever happened to me." But happiness rarely lasts without a test. One morning, Ethan received an urgent call from his company. There was a crisis. An investor had backed out of a major deal, and rumors spread that the CEO had lost focus because of his personal life. When Ethan reached the office, he found Clara and the board members waiting. Clara spoke coldly, "Ethan, you've changed. Your decisions are being questioned and your reputation is falling." He frowned, trying to stay calm. "My personal life has nothing to do with the company." Clara smirked. "Maybe not, but the media doesn't see it that way. There are already photos of you and Mira walking together. Investors are pulling out. People think you're distracted." Ethan felt his chest tighten. He had expected gossip, but not this much damage. He looked at the board and said firmly, "I'll handle this." That evening, he drove to Mira's apartment, his mind full of worry. When she opened the door, her face lit up, but the moment she saw his troubled eyes, her smile faded. "Ethan, what's wrong?" she asked. He hesitated, then said quietly, "The company is in trouble. People are using our relationship against me." Mira's heart sank. "What do you mean?" "They think I'm not focused," he said bitterly. "They say I've changed because of you." Mira looked at him with teary eyes. "That's not true." Ethan sighed deeply. "I know it's not, but the business world doesn't care about truth. They only care about image." Mira stepped closer. "So what are you going to do?" He looked at her sadly. "I don't know yet. But I need to fix this before everything falls apart." She held his hand tightly. "I'll be here for you." Ethan smiled weakly. "I know you will, but maybe it's better if we stay apart for a while." Her eyes widened in disbelief. "What?" He looked away, pain visible on his face. "It's only temporary. If I can clear this mess, no one can use you against me again." Mira shook her head. "No, Ethan, we can face it together." But he gently pulled his hand away. "Please, Mira, just trust me on this." Tears rolled down her cheeks as she whispered, "You promised me you'd never let the world come between us." Ethan's voice broke. "And I meant it. But right now, I have no choice." She turned away, covering her mouth to stop herself from sobbing. "You're choosing them over me," she said in a trembling voice. Ethan stepped forward, wanting to hold her, but stopped himself. "I'm doing this to protect you." "No," she whispered, shaking her head. "You're protecting your image." The silence between them grew heavy, filled with pain. Finally, Ethan whispered, "I'll come back for you, I promise." Mira looked at him with broken eyes. "Promises are easy to make, Ethan." He tried to speak, but she turned and walked inside, closing the door gently behind her. He stood there for a long moment in the hallway, his chest aching, before walking away slowly, his heart heavy with regret. Days passed, then weeks, but Ethan didn't return. Mira tried to stay strong, but every night she cried quietly, remembering his voice, his smile, and the way he once said she was the best thing that ever happened to him. She checked her phone every morning, hoping for a message, but it never came. Meanwhile, Ethan threw himself into work, trying to fix the chaos. The media pressure was intense, and his sleepless nights began to show. One evening, Clara walked into his office and said coldly, "You did the right thing ending it. You need to focus." Ethan looked up at her sharply. "You don't understand anything." She smirked. "I understand more than you think. She was only going to hold you back." Ethan slammed his hand on the desk, his voice angry for the first time. "Don't talk about her like that." Clara stepped back, realizing she had gone too far. Ethan closed his eyes and whispered, "You'll never understand what she means to me." But life had its own cruel timing. A few weeks later, Ethan received a call from one of the bookstore owners. Mira had collapsed at work from exhaustion. Without thinking, he rushed to the hospital. When he saw her lying there, pale and weak, his heart broke completely. He sat beside her bed, holding her hand gently. When she opened her eyes and saw him, tears rolled down her face. "You came," she whispered. "Of course I did," he said softly, his voice shaking. "I never stopped thinking about you." She smiled faintly, her voice weak. "Then why did you leave?" He couldn't answer. His silence said it all. Mira looked away, whispering, "I thought love meant staying, not walking away when it's hard." Ethan's eyes filled with tears. "I was a fool. I thought I was protecting you, but I only ended up hurting you." She looked at him quietly, her voice trembling. "So what happens now, Ethan?" He took her hand gently. "Now I fix what I broke. I promise you this time, I won't let go." Mira closed her eyes, letting his words sink in, but deep down she was scared to believe again. She had already been hurt once by his promise. As he sat there watching her sleep, Ethan realized that love wasn't about being perfect or protecting your image. It was about standing beside someone even when the world turned against you. He knew he had lost her trust, but he also knew he would do whatever it took to win it back. Outside the hospital window, the city lights flickered like stars, and Ethan whispered to himself, "This time, I won't fail her again." But fate wasn't done testing their love, because the storm that was coming would be stronger than both of them imagined. Weeks turned into months, and life slowly moved on for Mira, though her heart never truly did. She tried to bury herself in her new job at the small bookstore, greeting customers with her soft smile and arranging shelves all day. But when she was alone, her mind always drifted back to Ethan. His calm voice, his gentle smile, the way he looked at her like she was more than what the world saw. Every night, when she closed her eyes, she remembered the day she walked away from him and wondered if she made the biggest mistake of her life. Sometimes she caught herself glancing at every black car that passed by the store window, hoping to see his familiar face, but he never came. She told herself it was for the best, that their worlds were too different, yet her heart still whispered his name. Ethan, on the other hand, was struggling too. Since Mira left, the office felt lifeless. He still went through meetings and deadlines, but his focus was gone. His assistant often found him staring out the window, lost in thought. "Sir, are you all right?" they would ask, and he'd nod with a faint smile, saying, "I'm fine," though deep down he wasn't. Every time he passed by the reception desk, he could almost see her sitting there, smiling politely, asking if he needed anything. One evening, after another long day of pretending to be fine, Ethan finally admitted to himself that he couldn't go on like this. He missed her, not as his employee, but as the woman who had quietly stolen his heart. He knew he had to find her, no matter what it took. That weekend, he went to the small cafe near the bus station where she used to eat lunch sometimes. The waiter recognized her name and said she no longer worked nearby. Ethan spent days visiting nearby offices, asking quietly if anyone knew where she might be. Finally, one rainy afternoon, While walking down a narrow street filled with small shops, he saw her through the window of a bookstore. She was standing on a stool, reaching up to place books on the top shelf. The sight made his heart ache and melt at the same time. She looked peaceful, yet there was a quiet sadness in her eyes. Ethan stood there for a moment, afraid to move, afraid it might all be a dream. Then, slowly, he opened the door. The small bell above it chimed softly. Mira turned around, and when her eyes met his, she froze. The book slipped from her hand and fell to the floor. "Ethan!" she whispered, almost not believing what she saw. He smiled gently, his eyes filled with emotion. "It's been a while, Mira." She blinked, still stunned. "What are you doing here?" He stepped closer, his voice calm but full of feeling. "Looking for you." Mira's heart began to race. "Why?" she asked softly, though she already knew the answer. Ethan took a deep breath. "Because I realized something. I let you walk away thinking the world's judgment mattered more than my heart. But it doesn't. I don't care what people say anymore. I just care about you." Tears filled Mira's eyes as she looked at him. "Ethan, you don't understand. People will still talk. They'll say, I used you." Ethan smiled sadly. "Let them talk, Mira. I've lived my whole life for others' opinions. For once, I want to live for myself." She stepped back slightly, trying to hold back her tears. "You're a CEO, Ethan. You have everything. And I'm just—" He interrupted gently. "You're the only thing that ever made my life feel real." His voice cracked slightly as he spoke. "You taught me that love isn't about money or status. It's about seeing someone's soul. And I saw yours the day you stepped into my car by mistake." Mira couldn't stop her tears now. "You don't know how many nights I wished I could go back to that day," she said quietly. Ethan smiled faintly. "Then maybe today is our second chance." For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The rain fell softly outside, and the world around them seemed to fade away. Finally, Ethan reached out and held her hand gently. "Come back with me, Mira. Not to the company, not as an employee, but as someone who belongs in my life." She stared at him, her heart torn between fear and love. "Are you sure?" she whispered. "I've never been more sure of anything," he said firmly. Her lips trembled as she whispered, "I'm scared, Ethan." He nodded. "So am I. But sometimes love is worth the risk." Slowly, she took a step closer, and their hands clasped fully this time. The warmth between them was undeniable. Just then, the bookstore owner called out jokingly, "Looks like a happy ending in aisle 3. They both laughed through their tears, breaking the tension. Ethan said softly, "It's not an ending. It's just the beginning." Mira smiled shyly, wiping her eyes. "You're still good at saying the right things." He chuckled. "Only when it comes to you." He offered to walk her home, and she agreed. As they stepped out into the rain, Ethan took off his jacket and placed it gently over her shoulders. They walked side by side, silent but smiling, their hearts finally at peace after months of pain. That night, as Mira sat by her window, she looked at the city lights glowing in the distance. For the first time in a long while, she felt hope that love could really find its way back no matter how lost it seemed. Ethan, too, looked out from his car, smiling as he whispered, "Fate doesn't make mistakes, it just waits for the right moment." Both of them knew that from that simple ride months ago to this quiet reunion, destiny had always been driving the story of their hearts. Days passed, and the connection between Ethan and Mira kept growing stronger, though neither of them dared to say what they truly felt. Everyone in the office could sense the quiet warmth between them, and even though Ethan acted professional, his eyes always found Mira. She, on the other hand, tried her best to stay focused on her work, pretending that nothing special existed between them. But deep down, her heart had already begun to change. One morning, Ethan asked her to bring some documents to his penthouse because he had taken the day off to work from home. Mira hesitated, unsure if it was right, but his tone was gentle. "Please, Mira, I just need your help with some reports," he said. That afternoon she arrived at his place, amazed by how beautiful and peaceful it was. The huge windows overlooked the entire city, and soft music played in the background. Ethan welcomed her with a smile and offered her coffee. "You don't have to be nervous," he said warmly. It's just work. Mira nodded, trying to stay calm, but her heart was beating fast. They sat together, discussing files and plans, but slowly their conversation turned personal. Ethan shared stories about his past, how his parents' marriage had fallen apart, and how he had learned to trust no one. "People came close to me for my money or my name," he said quietly. "That's why I stopped letting anyone in." Mira looked at him softly. "Not everyone is like that, Ethan." He smiled faintly. "I know. You're different." Those words made her heart flutter, but before she could reply, the sound of the doorbell broke the silence. Ethan stood up to answer it, and a tall woman walked in wearing a bright red dress. She looked elegant, confident, and familiar to Mira. It was Clara, the marketing head from the office. Her eyes widened when she saw Mira sitting there. "Oh, I didn't know you had company," Clara said, her tone dripping with sarcasm. Ethan frowned. "Clara, this isn't what you think. Mira just brought some documents." Clara crossed her arms. "Really? Because it looks more like you're entertaining your new favorite employee." Mira stood up immediately, embarrassed. "It's not like that," she said softly, but Clara ignored her. "Ethan, people are already talking about you two. If you keep defending her, you'll lose respect in the company." Ethan's expression hardened. "Clara, that's enough. Leave." Clara smirked bitterly. "Be careful, Ethan. She might be using you like everyone else." With that, she turned and stormed out. The room went silent. Mira's hands trembled as she spoke. "Maybe she's right. I shouldn't have come here. I'm sorry." She turned to leave, but Ethan caught her hand gently. "Don't listen to her. She's jealous and angry." Mira shook her head, tears welling up. "Still, I don't want to be the reason people insult you. I think I should quit." Ethan's grip tightened slightly. "No, Mira, don't say that. You've done nothing wrong." She looked into his eyes, her heart breaking. "Then why does it hurt so much?" He looked away, his voice low. "Because sometimes doing the right thing doesn't stop people from judging you." The next day, Clara spread more rumors, saying Mira got special treatment because of her closeness to Ethan. Some employees began avoiding Mira, whispering behind her back. She tried to stay strong, but the humiliation was too much. One afternoon, when she went to deliver a report, she overheard two employees laughing and saying, "Poor girl thinks the boss actually cares about her." The words cut deep. That evening, she went straight to Ethan's office. "I can't do this anymore," she said firmly. "I'm resigning." Ethan looked shocked. "Why? Because of what others say?" "Because I can't bear the pain of being misunderstood," she whispered. "People will never see me as anything but a poor girl chasing your attention." Ethan stood and walked around the desk, stopping in front of her. "Do you really think that's what this is about?" She looked down, tears falling. "I don't know what this is anymore." Ethan's voice softened. "Mira, when I met you, you changed something in me. You made me see life differently. I care about you more than I should." Mira looked up slowly, her eyes wide. "Ethan," he sighed deeply, "but I also know that being with me will only make your life harder. My world is full of people who won't understand someone like you." Mira's voice trembled. "Then maybe we should stay apart before it hurts more." He nodded slowly, his eyes full of sadness. "If that's what you want." Mira turned and walked away, trying not to cry, but her heart felt like it was breaking with every step. Days turned into weeks, and Mira no longer worked at Gray Enterprises. She found a small job at a bookstore and tried to rebuild her peace. But no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't forget Ethan. The way he looked at her, the way he made her feel seen for the first time in her life. Every time she saw a black car pass by, her heart would race, hoping it might be him. Ethan, too, was lost without her. His office felt empty, his days dull. He realized how much she had changed his world with her simple smile. One night, he opened the drawer of his desk and found the coffee cup she had once used. He picked it up slowly and whispered, "Mira, where are you?" He finally understood that no matter what the world said, his heart had already chosen her. He decided to find her, not as the CEO of a company, but as a man who had fallen deeply in love. The following weeks at Gray Enterprises changed everything for Mira. What had started as just another job slowly became something more meaningful. Every morning when she arrived early and walked past the large glass doors, her heart would beat a little faster, knowing she might see Ethan, though he was always surrounded by people, assistants, managers, and business partners. He never failed to greet her with a small, warm smile. That simple gesture made her whole day brighter. The staff often whispered about it, but Mira tried not to pay attention. She wanted to stay focused and not dream too much. Yet, deep inside, she couldn't help feeling that Ethan was different with her. He spoke kindly, never made her feel small, and often asked her opinions on small office matters. It was strange for a man like him, a millionaire CEO, to treat someone like her with such respect. One rainy afternoon, Mira was working late, sorting files in the reception area. The building was quiet, and most employees had already gone home. She suddenly heard footsteps behind her. Turning around, she saw Ethan standing there, holding 2 cups of coffee. "You're still here?" he asked, walking closer. "Yes, sir. I mean, Ethan," she replied nervously, tucking her hair behind her ear. He handed her a cup. "You should take a break." She hesitated, but took it with a grateful smile. "Thank you. You didn't have to." Ethan sat on the edge of the desk, his tone light. "I didn't want to leave the office knowing my best employee was still working." Mira laughed softly. "I'm not the best. I just try my best." He looked at her with quiet admiration. "That's what makes you different, Mira." The room fell silent for a few seconds, the sound of rain tapping against the glass windows filling the air. It was a peaceful moment, but Mira could feel the tension between them, the kind of tension that comes when 2 hearts begin to notice each other. After that evening, things between them started to change subtly. Ethan began inviting Mira to small meetings, asking her to take notes or share her thoughts. She was surprised by how much he trusted her. Sometimes during lunch breaks they would talk about simple things, music, books, or childhood memories. Ethan told her he grew up in a rich family but had always felt lonely. Mira shared how she had lost her parents young and worked hard to take care of her brother. Those small conversations created an invisible bond between them, something gentle but strong. One afternoon, as they walked through the company garden, Ethan stopped suddenly and said, "You know, Mira, you remind me of someone." She tilted her head curiously. "Who?" "My mother," he said softly. "She used to say that kindness is the most powerful thing in the world. You have that same kindness." Mira's eyes softened. "That's the nicest thing anyone has ever said to me." Ethan smiled faintly. "It's just the truth." But not everyone was happy seeing them close. Clara, the company's marketing head who had secretly admired Ethan for years, began to notice how often he looked at Mira. She didn't like it. One day, she saw them laughing together near the elevator and whispered to another employee, "She's just a receptionist, yet she acts like she's special." Rumors began spreading around the office that Mira had gotten close to Ethan for personal gain. When she heard the whispers, her heart sank. She had worked so hard to prove herself, and now people were questioning her honesty. That evening, when she went home, she couldn't hold back her tears. Her brother noticed and asked what was wrong, but she just smiled weakly and said, "It's nothing, Sam." Inside, though, she felt broken. She didn't want Ethan to think she was the reason for office gossip. The next day, Mira tried to keep her distance from him. She focused on her work, avoided eye contact, and answered only when necessary. Ethan noticed the sudden change. During lunch, he approached her desk and asked quietly, "Are you upset about something?" She shook her head. "No, just busy," but he wasn't convinced. Later that evening, as she was about to leave, he called her to his office. "Mira, what's wrong? You've been quiet all day." She hesitated, then said softly, "People are talking, sir. They think I'm close to you for the wrong reasons." Ethan's expression darkened. "Do you believe that?" "No," she whispered, "but I don't want to ruin your reputation." Ethan walked closer, his eyes gentle but firm. "Let them talk. I know who you are, and that's all that matters." Mira looked at him, her heart pounding. "But you're the CEO. You can't ignore what people say." He smiled faintly. "I've ignored worse, Mira. Besides, I don't care what they think, as long as you know the truth." For a moment, the world outside seemed to stop. The soft evening light from the window fell on Ethan's face, making him look almost unreal. Mira felt her eyes sting with tears, touched by his words. "Why are you being so kind to me?" she asked in a trembling voice. He looked at her quietly for a long moment before answering, "Because you remind me that I still have a heart." Mira didn't know what to say. Her throat felt tight, and her heart was racing faster than ever. Ethan turned away, his voice softer now. "Don't let anyone make you feel small, Mira. You're stronger than you think." That night, as she walked home under the streetlights, Mira felt her emotions swirl between happiness and fear. She knew her life was changing in ways she didn't fully understand. But one thing was clear. Ethan was no longer just her boss. He had become someone she couldn't stop thinking about. Meanwhile, Ethan sat in his office long after everyone had left, staring at the chair where she usually sat. He smiled faintly and whispered to himself, "This feeling. It's dangerous, but I can't stop it." Neither of them knew it yet, but their growing bond was about to face the first real test of love. The next morning, Mira woke up early, her heart still filled with mixed feelings from the strange day before. She couldn't stop thinking about Ethan Gray, the man whose car she had mistakenly entered and who turned out to be the CEO of the company where she had applied. It all still felt like a dream. As she brushed her hair and looked in the cracked mirror of her tiny rented room, she whispered to herself, "People like him and girls like me live in two different worlds." Her younger brother, Sam, looked up from the small table where he was doing homework and asked softly, "Did you get the job, Mira?" She smiled, though she wasn't sure. "I hope so, Sam. Let's see." After serving him breakfast, she hurried to the bus stop, wondering if she should check her email for any message. But before she could, her phone buzzed with an unknown number. "Hello, is this Mira?" A woman's voice asked politely. "Yes, it is," Mira replied nervously. "Congratulations," the woman said. "You've been selected as the new receptionist for Gray Enterprises. Please report tomorrow morning." Mira froze in shock. "Really? Are you sure?" The woman laughed gently. "Yes, ma'am. Mr. Ethan Gray himself approved your file." Mira's hands trembled as she ended the call. She had never expected him to remember her, let alone hire her. That night, she could barely sleep. She kept thinking about why he would choose her when there were probably hundreds of better candidates. Maybe it was luck. Maybe it was something else. The next day, Mira arrived at the tall glass building again, this time wearing her only neat dress. The receptionist guided her to her desk on the first floor. Everything around her looked elegant and expensive. The marble floors, the soft lights, and the people dressed in fine clothes. She felt out of place but determined to prove herself. As she was learning her tasks, a soft voice said behind her, "Settling in." She turned quickly and found Ethan standing there, his hands in his pockets, looking calm as always. "Mr. Gray," she said in surprise. I didn't expect to see you here." He smiled faintly. "You work in my building, so you'll see me often." Her heart skipped slightly and she nodded, feeling her cheeks warm. "Thank you for giving me this job," she said quietly. "I'll do my best." Ethan looked at her for a moment and replied, "I know you will." Then he walked away, leaving her standing there confused but oddly happy. Days passed, and Mira worked hard. She came early, stayed late, and treated everyone with kindness. Many employees noticed her sincerity, but some whispered behind her back that she got the job because of the CEO. Mira ignored the gossip, focusing only on her work. One afternoon, as she was sorting some files, Ethan came out of his office holding a document. "Mira," he called. She quickly stood up. "Yes, sir?" "I need you to assist me at a charity event tonight," he said. "Our regular assistant is unwell. You'll only have to help with the guests." Mira's eyes widened. "Me? But I've never been to such events." Ethan smiled. "That's fine. Just be yourself." That evening, Mira found herself in a beautiful gown that the company had arranged for her. When she arrived at the Grand Hotel, she felt like she had stepped into another world. People dressed elegantly, crystal chandeliers glowing above, and soft music playing. She stood near Ethan as he greeted guests, trying to stay calm. During a quiet moment, he turned to her and said, You look different tonight." She blushed and looked down. "Thank you, sir." He smiled gently. "You don't have to call me sir when we're outside the office." She looked up, surprised. "Then what should I call you?" "Ethan," he said softly. For a second, their eyes met, and Mira felt something warm stir in her chest. Later that night, when the event ended, Ethan offered to drop her home. On the way, it started raining. The city lights blurred through the raindrops on the car window. Mira watched quietly, feeling peaceful. "You know," Ethan said suddenly, "I've met thousands of people in my life, but few have the honesty I saw in you that morning." She turned toward him, surprised. "You noticed that?" He nodded. "You didn't pretend. You were scared, but you still spoke the truth." "That's rare," Mira smiled faintly. "Maybe because I don't know how to lie," she said. Ethan laughed softly, a real smile this time. "Good, don't ever learn it." When they reached her street, he stopped the car. "Thank you for tonight," he said. She shook her head. "I should be the one thanking you, for everything." Before she got out, Ethan added quietly, "You deserve more than you think, Mira." She froze for a second, unsure what he meant. Their eyes met again, and for the first time, she saw something different in his gaze, something warmer, softer, almost protective. She stepped out of the car, clutching her bag tightly, her heart racing faster than ever. As the car drove away into the rain, Mira whispered to herself, "Why does he make my heart feel this way?" That night, Ethan sat in his apartment, staring at the city lights through the glass window. He couldn't stop thinking about Mira, the girl who had entered his car by mistake but somehow entered his thoughts too. He tried to convince himself it was just curiosity, but deep down, he knew it was more than that. Something about her simplicity, her quiet strength had touched a place in his heart he didn't know still existed. He smiled faintly to himself and whispered, "Maybe fate brought her into my car for a reason." Neither of them knew it yet, but their story had only just begun. It was an early morning in the busy city, and a young girl named Mira stood by the roadside clutching her worn-out handbag. The air was cool, and the sound of car horns mixed with the chatter of people rushing to work. Mira had barely slept the night before because today could change her entire life. She had a job interview at a well-known company, and getting that job meant she could finally leave her small rented room and start building a better life for herself and her younger brother. Her phone buzzed and a message appeared saying, "Your ride has arrived." She looked up and spotted a shiny black car parked near the sidewalk. Without thinking much, she hurried over, opened the back door, and slipped inside. The car's leather seats felt smooth and expensive, and a faint smell of cologne filled the air. "Good morning, sir. I'm going to Greenview Tower," Mira said softly while fixing her scarf nervously. The man in the driver's seat looked at her through the mirror with calm but sharp eyes. "I think you might be in the wrong car," he said with a slight smile. Mira blinked in confusion, her heart suddenly racing. "Isn't this Uber?" she asked quickly, checking her phone. The man chuckled lightly. "No, it's not." "But where are you going?" She hesitated, biting her lip. "Greenview Tower. I have an interview there." The man tilted his head, his expression unreadable. "That's on my way," he said simply and started the car before she could protest. Mira sat frozen, embarrassed and nervous. She couldn't believe she had jumped into a stranger's car, and not just any stranger. He looked like someone important, confident, and used to being obeyed. She thought of getting out, but the car was already moving smoothly through traffic. For a while, neither of them spoke. Mira glanced out the window, her mind full of worries about the interview. Then the man broke the silence. "You seem nervous," he said in a calm voice. "First interview?" Mira nodded slightly. "Yes, it's for a receptionist job." "I really need it," she admitted. The man smiled faintly. "You'll do fine. You seem determined." She gave a shy smile, feeling oddly comforted by his words. As they stopped at a red light, Mira finally gathered courage to ask, "If you don't mind, can I know your name?" He glanced at her through the mirror again. "I'm Ethan Gray," he said. The name sounded familiar, and Mira's eyes widened slightly. Ethan Gray, the name she had read in newspapers, the millionaire CEO of Gray Enterprises, one of the biggest companies in the city. She felt her throat tighten. "Oh, I didn't realize," she began, but he interrupted gently. "It's all right. You can relax. Not every day someone mistakes my car for an Uber." His tone was teasing but kind. Mira smiled nervously, her face warm with embarrassment. The rest of the ride passed in comfortable silence. When they reached Greenview Tower, she quickly thanked him and stepped out. "Good luck," Ethan said as she closed the door. She nodded, her heart still fluttering. She couldn't believe she had just shared a ride with the city's most powerful man. Inside the building, Mira took a deep breath and fixed her hair before walking toward the reception. The elevator ride to the top floor felt endless, and she kept reminding herself to stay calm. When her name was finally called, she walked into the interview room with trembling hands. But the moment she stepped in, her breath caught. Sitting at the head of the long glass table was none other than Ethan Gray. Their eyes met instantly. Ethan leaned back slightly in his chair, a faint smile forming on his lips. "Well," he said softly, "we meet again." Mira froze in place, unsure whether to laugh or run. The other interviewers looked confused, wondering how they knew each other. Ethan looked at her file briefly, then back at her. "You're applying for the receptionist position?" he asked, pretending to be serious. Mira nodded slowly, her cheeks burning. "Yes, sir," she managed to say. Ethan didn't reply right away. Instead, he watched her quietly, almost studying her. Finally, he said, "Let's begin then." The rest of the interview felt like a dream. Ethan asked calm, simple questions, and Mira answered as best as she could, though her mind kept flashing back to that ride. She wondered if her silly mistake would cost her the job, or maybe, strangely, it had opened a door she never expected. When the interview ended, Ethan smiled slightly and said, "You did well." Mira thanked him politely and walked out, feeling both nervous and relieved. As she reached the elevator, she let out a deep breath and whispered to herself, "What a strange day." But inside the office, Ethan was still watching her through the glass window, a thoughtful look in his eyes. There was something about her innocence, her honesty, and her courage that he couldn't forget. He didn't know why, but he felt a strange pull toward her, as if fate had brought her into his car for a reason. Mira had no idea that this small mistake, stepping into the wrong car, was the beginning of a love story that would change her entire world forever.